Hello there. Today I am joined by Sarah from Atomic Mass Games, and despite some technical issues on my end, we were still able to have a fantastic conversation talking about the design space that tactic cards and crisis cards are made in. As well, we talk about the new hot stuff on the market, the grunts, and their design space, including how they can be included in your roster. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. All right, and here I am today with Sarah from Atomic Mass Games. If you don't mind, just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Happy to be here. I'm Sarah from Atomic Mass Games, as you astutely pointed out. I'm on the development team for Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Fantastic. And so we've got some questions lined up about tactics cards, crisis cards, and the current new hype, which is the grunts and all the different things. We'll see how much I can get you to spill about those. But first, I kind of want to talk about tactic cards because they're by far and away one of my favorite aspects of the game, both in the mechanical sense, but also thematically. So, can you tell me, I guess, where does the creation of a tactic card begin?
Sure. So the extremely lame answer would be to say that every card is different. So, we're going to skip that and say that in general, very often, tactic cards are a great way to draw in iconic moments from the comics and get explosive action inside of the game, as you well know. So tactic cards often start their lives in the thematic space. I would say that one of our favorite things to do on the development team is make sure that anyone who's a huge fan of the characters is present in the room and can shout out suggestions, and then we take those and mold them into things that suit the mechanics that we're building for the character.
Yeah, absolutely. And it leaves so much awesome space. You guys are able to do the tag team cards and all that kind of stuff. So, and you mentioned it kind of runs down to when the characters are you're looking at iconic moments and stuff. Do you is it sometimes just kind of a general theme about the character that you want to emphasize, or are these usually just iconic moments that you look at and you're like, yes, I want to make that happen on the table?
Again, it varies.
Yeah.
Some characters lend themselves better to having those big pop out moments, and some lend themselves to having, more, what's the word that I want to say? Just to display a different aspect of the character than what might normally appear on their regular stat card.
Hmm.
And then some tactic cards aren't character specific at all, obviously, and they're very mechanical in their use in helping any character who can play them get into the game and pull something big.
Yeah, like everybody knows how to use a med kit if you've been in a rough and tumble situation before.
If you're alive after a couple rounds of MCP, you probably know some first aid.
Certainly hope so, at least. So, do you have a favorite team tactic card that you think is underrated or underused or anything like that?
Oh, underused is a bit loaded, obviously.
Mhm.
Since, you know, it's hard to know 100% what's going on all the time, but I will say that I'm a big fan of the highly thematic cards. Um, they're really fun to make and they're really fun to play. So I would throw out there that Gene is one of my favorite cards that I would like to see people play, especially if they're going to shout when they use it.
I feel like it's a requirement with that one. Like that, you can't just be like, okay, I played G. No, you just scream it out, and your opponent already knows what's coming.
Yeah, there is no card called Gene. There's only a card called Gene.
And I do apologize to anybody wearing headphones.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but it had to be done.
Had to be. Okay, so we see a lot of tactic cards, and to a degree, it almost feels like they are a one time use superpower made up into a card. So when you're designing a character, what separates the superpowers that make it onto a character's card versus the ones that they get in the form of a team tactic card? An example would be Venom's Lethal Protector.
That's a good question. So superpowers that end up on tactic cards obviously have an additional cost beyond any normal power cost in that they take up a tactic card slot, right, in your roster. So the cutoff is often made between powers that we want a character to have guaranteed access to versus things that we believe are a powerful one-time explosion for that character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, tactic cards can also represent very situational or thematic expressions of the character that don't fit onto their core card. Um, we also believe that a core card, the character should function and be able to play their whole kit and shouldn't have to include any given tactic card to be able to do their stuff. So things that are on the tactic cards are always like awesome bonuses for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you choose
Absolutely.
which character you're going to invest in when you stack a bunch of their tactic cards onto them in the game.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. There's the aspect of like Venom's not just going to be hopping around back and forth doing lethal protectors, and same for Iron Fist with Heroes for Hire. So makes perfect sense to me. And so my last question regarding tactic cards is actually regarding the latest banned and restricted list. Had a few new additions, many of which I don't think surprised many people. The banning of All You've Got, Better Rivals going to the restricted list. One that did kind of surprise me personally, and if you don't mind explaining, why Doom Prophecy is still on the restricted list even after the erratas that make it only usable by Asgardians.
So that one, I am not at liberty to discuss all of the specific reasoning behind.
Haha. That is perfectly fair and feels like such a tease.
It happens.
It does. Well, that is tantalizing news, but at the same time can be uh, very cool. And it's still such a great card within Asgard. Thor getting to get buffed up, Angela getting to get buffed up. So some of the characters that can utilize it best are already in the affiliation anyway.
Precisely.
Perfect. Cool. So then crisis cards are probably one of the most unique functions of how Marvel Crisis Protocol plays. And now, with more than 10 of each kind of crisis release, I wanted to ask if there were any crazy ideas that just kind of fell apart that you're able to share.
Unfortunately, I can't because nothing ever really dies around here. Ideas that don't go to print have a lovely stay in the idea vault to be visited again at some later time, perhaps. Um, so something that didn't work out in the original pass on it might be the perfect solution to a design challenge later down the road. So I can't reveal anything that we have not published to the public.
That makes perfect sense, and it also just kind of makes me happy to know that there's like this idea vault that is stashed deep within the headquarters of Atomic Mass Games that has some all sorts of just wonderful things in there.
Yeah, I'll say for sure that the idea vault makes it sting less when something doesn't go to print for any reason. You never know. Things have come back out of the idea vault in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really cool tool that you guys then have to utilize and look back at, or like I can totally see somebody just having that epiphany moment where they're like, "Oh my goodness, I figured out how to fix fill in the blank that you can't share with us."
Precisely.
Awesome. Well, in that case, talking about the crisis cards, are they typically designed around a specific event or idea from the comics, or is it more of you're trying to find a theme or situation that fits a mechanic that you guys wanted to do? One of the examples that stands out to me is Wakandan Herbs feels a lot like Capture the Flag, kind of made into a Marvel Crisis Protocol scenario.
Sure. So a lot of the game revolves around a lot of the game revolves around the crisis. It's such a silly thing to say, but it is also true, right? That the
Hmm.
crisis defines how the game is going to be played from that point on. So the crises do tend to begin their lives in a more mechanical state than tactic cards typically do for us. Not that they're ever divorced from the thematic nature of them, because personally I believe that that's just not really possible to do in design. I think it's what something is and what something does are not actually separate ever at any point in the process. But what we look for are interesting scenarios, and then the nature of them appears from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Then I guess my last question about the crisis cards, and one of the things I just really like about them is that all of the crisis cards, there's none that is just kind of like, hey, this scores points and that's it, period, done. There's always some extra spice that is mixed into the objectives. Where does that usually come from?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I think the answer is that it comes from our own love of playing the game, that we find it interesting and compelling to have cool things happening outside of, make move, score point. That everybody who works on the team loves playing games. We love playing our game, we love playing other people's games. Um, and so adding in that extra that extra oomph is just fun, and it leads to cool gameplay. I feel like I didn't answer that super eloquently, but it's because I'm getting excited thinking about how fun games are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if anything, a recent interview with Will Shick has shown his love for absolute chaos that can happen in the game and can be made just by the objectives with crazy stuff like mutant madman and you're rolling dice trying to capture stuff. And I think there's definitely a love within the community that none of these are the move to point, score point kind of scenarios.
Absolutely. We love things that are cinematic in their nature. Um, and so that's where the drive to put in these interesting twists comes from.
Awesome. All right. So for the past couple of weeks, you all have been teasing us with what seems to be a whole new game design space or mechanic with the additions of minions or grunts to the game. I know that Dallas has talked about a little bit about them on the painting stream with Nick Fury. Link down in the description below if you haven't seen that yet. But I am eager to learn every little bit that I can, especially since there's also been some hand ninjas teased with what looks to be like an Electro, which I'm really excited for. One step closer to Thunderbolts. I guess just kind of like what prompted the idea behind yes, now is the right time to add grunts. What was the kind of thought process behind them?
Absolutely. So minions in general are a thing that people have wanted for a while, and grunts are the version of them that we developed that we feel is going to be a really great complement to our current design goals for MCP. So the idea behind them is that they should never overshadow main named characters, right? You should never be more excited about grunts than you are about the characters they go with.
Hmm.
You can be excited about them together, of course, and you can be excited about there being a new mechanic, obviously, but we don't want MCP to be a game of grunts. We want it to be a game of heroes and villains and epic clashes. So the grunts um, are attachment pieces for their parents. They are an additional mechanic that comes along with a parent character that spawns and dictates the use of them. And in that way, they aren't going to swarm the battlefield or anything quite so dramatic.
Awesome, and that's great to hear. I know that's been a lot of people's kind of I don't want to say concern, but maybe a little bit of concern of having this game become something that wasn't focused on the epic conflict between the heroes and the villains and taking that direction. And I feel like this is a really nice kind of compromise to be able to be like, well, yeah, like Nick Fury's going to call for backup. There's so many of these kind of big characters that are known leaders of organizations and stuff. So having some way to represent them on the table, I think, is going to be something really cool.
Exactly, that's the goal, that Nick Fury can call for backup, but you never think of the backup before you think of Nick Fury, right?
Mm-hmm. Cool. So one of the things that's a great representation of the grunts is that there so far are multiple models represented on one base to kind of help represent that team of shield agents or maybe that squad of hand ninjas that you guys have teased us with. Was there any, I guess, development side of that? Thinking, yeah, we want to have multiple of these kind of minion-esque characters on a single base, or
Yeah, that's definitely a full team collaborative effort. So obviously sculpting was really involved in this, right?
Mhm.
And that's part of what's so cool about this job is that as much as development primarily develops, as I mentioned earlier with tactic cards, other other departments do interface with us and give us ideas and talk with us about things. And we go back and forth with them, and it's this great collaboration internally inside the team. So in collaboration with all those other teams, we came up with representing them in this way where it shows the idea that we wanted to get across, like you said, the horde of backup, but without actually swarming a ton of minis onto the field. That they count as one mini effectively, they're on one base.
Yeah. So, and what a fantastic idea, compromise, whatever it ended up being, or whatever the right word is to fill in there, because you are able to get that scale of like, yeah, here's like a full team of henchmen A, B, and C, without like slowing down the game mechanically, with like multiple people having to get moved around or anything crazy like that. It continues to keep that nice flow of game play that Marvel Crisis Protocol has. Also revealed on stream, we know that grunts and their parent character activate in the same kind of turn window. Are there any range restrictions that forces the grunts to stay close to their parent character to receive orders, or is Fury able to just like yell into his earpiece and communicate his plans to the grunts that way?
The grunts are, at the end of the day, considered characters, so they are not forced to stay on a leash.
Awesome, makes sense. And I feel like with any of the possible minions, there's going to be some sort of way for their boss to give them orders on the battlefield, whether it's a little earpiece or some hand signs or whatever it may be. So I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the leaders never have problems issuing orders in the midst of battle.
All right, so trying to gain some insight from the sculpts revealed, it looks as though these shield agents are getting dropped off onto the battlefield at an instant's notice, rappelling down from a Quinjet or something of the sort. So does this mean if a grunt team is removed, that Fury can call in more backup? Because I can kind of see Fury yelling into his microphone, "I didn't ask for the C team. I need the A team down here now." Blah blah blah. Kind of a situation arising.
Let's see. What am I allowed to say? This is always interesting. Um, right, because I'm so excited and I want to talk about things with you, but I also don't want to overstep our lovely marketing team's ability to reveal things and get everybody pumped. So, what I can say is that yes, the parent characters can call in their grunts. There's a way that they're going to do this that will become obvious to you once you've actually seen them. and I'm not going to elaborate on it, but that is what they do. That's their relationship.
Perfect. I will take it and be excited for whatever upcoming reveals you guys do have. And given all the red tape and everything else, I do have one last thing I'm going to ask, and I know it's a bit of a long shot on how much you can talk about, but one thing I am really curious about is how the threat levels are going to work when it comes to the parents and the grunts. Is Nick Fury going to be like a 3 threat and then the grunts a 1 threat attachment, similar to how the Infinity Gem works? Is it all bundled together? Uh, are we able to get any insight on that?
Sure. So, BK did generously give me the ability to confirm for you that the grunts do not have their own threat value. They are not included in your rosters or squads on their own. They don't exist outside of their parent character spawning them into the game. So Fury has his own threat value, which is a threat 4. And the grunts, his shield agents, don't have any. So
Okay.
together they are a threat 4.
They're a threat 4. They only take up 1 roster slot.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, that is very interesting, and I'm so excited to see how these mechanics work and everything else. So much to be excited for. And with that, I have a question that certainly, hopefully, cannot get you in trouble with anybody. Do you have a comic run that you would suggest to anybody listening that is just like one of your favorites, or where you started, any of the above?
Absolutely. So let's see. I think I'm going to give you 2, if that's okay. 2 recommendations.
Totally fine.
So I'll give you one that's classic and then one that's current. So my favorite single contained comic run of all time has to be Planet Hulk.
Mm.
Um, there's a little bit of lead in. Ooh, you sound disappointed in that answer.
No, I'm pleasant, very pleased. It's a great story, and one that like the end result of Planet Hulk just kind of makes me sad for Hulk. Not as like a disappointed, but like, oh, that hurts.
It's a very surprisingly emotional run, to be sure, and is just full of all kinds of world building and awesomeness. And you can read it pretty much as a standalone if you have any idea who the Hulk is. So that's one recommendation. And then for currently ongoing, I'm a huge fan of Elektra. So she's my favorite character. So obviously, I'm really into the current run of Daredevil, which I'm not going to talk a lot about because it's current and ongoing. But I think it's pretty good so far. I would recommend it to anybody who's a fan of their street level heroes.
Okay, awesome. I have not read that one in particular, and will probably need to either go find a trade paperback or just go find some comics.
Yeah, it's been traded. There are a few trade volumes that are out now that you can get to catch up.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Sarah, for joining me today and giving us some insights on the design space surrounding Crisis and Tactic cards, as well as a nice little peek behind the curtain for some of the upcoming releases and the new grunt mechanic coming to Marvel Crisis Protocol and how they're going to factor into list building.
Well, it was a
Awesome.
pleasure
Well,
to be here, Nate.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you again so much. Have a fantastic day. And for everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, keep on gaming.